You're watching Next Pitch, the student-athlete playbook for parents raising tomorrow's athletes.
Welcome in. Anthony Leverett here, host of the Next Pitch podcast, and my favorite time of the week, get to spend about an hour with Dusty Hara. This is your weekly D&A. Thanks, Dusty, for doing this. Really appreciate it, man.
No, this is awesome. This is a great part of my week as well. One of my favorite times of the week because we just get to come and talk ball a little bit.
Talk some sports,
Let's
man.
go.
Let's start. I didn't have this on the list today, but I want to congratulate the 4 teams here in the state of Oregon that made it to the state semifinals. Pretty cool weekend in high school football at the 6A level. And my son is a member of the Lake Oswego program and got called up for the varsity run and just living his best life right now. It's pretty cool watching these kids compete.
One of the greatest achievements that you can have as a high school athlete in the state of Oregon, and every state's calendar is a little bit different, but if you get to practice on Thanksgiving, that's awesome.
Yeah,
and you know, that is kind of one of those things that when I was coaching high school football, it was, hey, we want to be practicing on Thanksgiving, right? That's the goal, is to get to a point where you could practice when there's very few teams in the entire state of Oregon that have the ability to do that. And here we have, 6 levels of football, and there's only 12 teams that have the opportunity to do that, which is practice on Thanksgiving. And it's a special time, and make it to the semifinals is an awesome achievement for all of the young men and women that go out there and compete and perform. But it's all about being able to practice this week, and that is a really cool achievement for all those schools.
Yeah, it's really cool, and for my hometown, my Lake Oswego, Coach Corey's 33rd season, which is just in and of itself in today's sports world is remarkable. Doing 5, 6, 7, 8 years is a long time at one place. Yeah. To be somewhere 33 years and still have the ability to take a team to the state championship game. I obviously I'm rooting for them anyway, but knowing him the way that I do, I'm rooting big time for the Lakers this weekend.
I love that about high school football and really high school sports in general, is that you get a coach that commits to the community and the community commits right back to them. And you get coaches that are there for 30 or 40 years and they become ingrained as part of that community. And there's so many generations of young men. Coach Corey's got guys where he now coached their dads.
It's crazy.
And their kids are coming through the program. That's really special. And that's a beauty of high school sports. It is one of my favorite parts about high school athletics, is that you can get somebody who is a great person and a great coach. And when you can marry those two things, you get a coach that's there for decades. And it's really cool what Coach Corey at Lake Oswego has built.
Yeah. And I think, for folks local listening to this, if you're not doing anything on Friday, there'll be about 15 D1 guys running around that field between Central Catholic and Lake Oswego on Friday afternoon. And it's high level football, man. It is, it's fun to watch. And there's a bunch of talent running around that in very well coached football.
Look, there was a time, and we're seeing this now, and I think that a large part of it has to do with the accessibility of recruiting and how that has changed over the years. But you mentioned like 15 guys that could be D1 on the field in the state championship game between two teams. It was a far cry to find a couple D1 guys in the entire state of Oregon, let alone the sheer numbers of guys that'll be legitimate, bona fide Division I players. The state, as it's grown, the athletes have gotten better. The competition has gotten so much better. And there's always an element of me, though, that thought, and you can speak to this too, because you were a small college guy as well.
Yeah.
There's a reason why small college football, baseball, and basketball have been so good in the Pacific Northwest. There is not, if you look at a map of where Division I programs are across the country, it is saturated on the East Coast and in the Midwest with a bunch of FCS, mid-major FBS programs. Out West, it's hard to find FCS programs, Division II programs, and the mid-major FBS programs. The concentration just isn't here as it is in the Midwest and back East. players would be funneled down to NAIA, D3, and we saw Montana State, Eastern Washington say, whoa, look at the state of Oregon here.
Yeah.
Look at the state of Washington. And they would go in and start plucking those guys out. Now, as recruiting has become more accessible, a lot of coaches are going, well, wait a minute. Like, yeah, no, that kid is good enough to play for us.
Yeah.
We can do something with him. And they're not going to those lower levels as much as they used to.
Yeah, I think with LO program right now, between the junior and senior class, there's 9 of them that are either committed to Division I schools or have major offers to Division I schools, which is pretty remarkable concentration of talent in one school. And LO is not alone in that, right? There's programs around the state, and it's not a ton of them, but it's getting better and better all the time.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And I mean, I think that you look at, the local programs and kind of that punching up mentality that Oregon State had for so many years and Oregon had for so many years. It was because they did it with a lot of local guys back then, right?
Yeah.
Whether it was somebody like Derek Anderson or Kellen Clemens, who were Scappoose and Burns High School guys that went to Oregon and Oregon State. And then you had guys like Mike Hass, who's a walk-on at Oregon State, ends up winning the Bolitnikoff Award. Mike Remmers, Jesuit, goes to Oregon State and ends up having a phenomenal career and several years in the NFL. One of my great friends, Cole Linehan, he was a Banks High School guy, and he gets an offer down at Oregon. I mean, those were all guys that it was like, where'd these guys come from? It's like, well, nobody knew who they were because recruiting wasn't a thing.
Yeah.
Well, now that is kind of spread out and there's a lot more notoriety going around for the local athletes.
That's pretty cool. Well, all those kids are going to be playing for something different. It's a good segue a year from now, a good segue into college football roundup for the week. And I know you had a fun weekend down in Eugene at Autzen Stadium calling a game. What a great win for Oregon. One that they really, I don't know if desperately needed is the right term, but to get that marquee win is big. And it's kind of the thing with college football, right? Everybody talking about them not having a key win, but you can only play the games that are on your schedule. You don't get to choose who you get. So a couple big games down the stretch here for Oregon and took care of business against USC first.
Yeah, I think that was the pelt on the wall that they were looking for. And the College Football Playoff Committee said it after the very first iteration of the rankings, saying, we're still looking for that quality win by Oregon. Well, and it was easy to see in the final 4 weeks, they had 3 opportunities to get quality wins. Iowa was the first one to check off. And look, the Ducks went to Iowa City. They were shorthanded. It was a bad weather, grind them out game, and they found a way to win that one. Well, all of a sudden, and Dan Lanning kind of highlighted this in the post-game press conference after this week's game, is that, he's like, it's kind of weird. He's like, we play a ranked team and all of a sudden we beat them and they're not ranked anymore. It's not our fault. And then he said, well, maybe it is our fault because
he's a walking soundbite, man.
Yeah,
he's unbelievable.
But I mean, it's kind of true. Like they go and they beat Penn State, broke the program. James Franklin gets fired a couple weeks later. Drew Aller gets hurt. They get several injuries across the board. And then all of a sudden Penn State falls apart. Well, they beat Iowa and everybody's like, that's the quality win. Well, then Iowa's unranked after that, and now they beat USC. And that is a top 15 win in the committee's eyes. That is huge because one thing that we know about what the playoff committee covets is your quality wins, not your quality losses. What are your quality wins? And if Oregon were to sit there with the resume sitting there at 10-2, if they beat Washington this week, but their 2 losses are to the 2 most quality opponents, that doesn't do much for you. This is a quality win in the committee's eyes because it was a top 15 matchup. They go and they do it by double digits, still shorthanded. And I think the most impressive part about what Oregon did was they did it with 3 of their starting offensive linemen out of the game, 2 of their 4 leading receivers out of the game. Another one of their leading receivers in Jeremiah McClellan goes down with a shoulder injury. He ends up coming back into the game, yet they still churn out 436 yards, 42 points against a USC team they needed that win. They needed that win, not just for the playoff this year, but as a springboard moving forward for them, because winning on the road has been tough under Lincoln Riley, and they needed a big win against the top 10 team, which they still haven't gotten home or away.
Well, and I think it really highlights the difference between what Dan Lanning's done and some of the other great coaches at Oregon done. And all of them have done something in their own right to elevate the program. But Dan's done the job of creating that depth in the recruiting classes that allow that kind of stuff to happen and still have success on the field, right? In even 5, 6, 7 years ago, losing that kind of talent would probably have been a death sentence. I hate using that term. I just did, but would have been you're going to lose those games without that talent because the depth behind it wasn't there, and now it is.
Yeah, you're looking at it, recruiting forward is the term, right? Where when a coach comes in, they have to build the roster in their vision and what they want to do. And it takes talented players. There's no mistake about it. Anybody that tells you anything different is crazy. Any coach that comes in immediately has success. It's because they have talented players too behind them. And that goes for, Dan Lanning at Oregon, who has a ton of resources. It goes to Kurt Cignetti at Indiana, who brought basically his James Madison team that was undefeated with him over to Indiana, and they had a bunch of talented players. It takes talented people to execute what you want to have on the field. Lanning was able to step into a program where Mario Cristobal elevated the recruiting at Oregon to a point where it had never been before. When Lanning stepped in, the big thing he did was he held on to a lot of the talent, but then over those first 2 years was able to kind of shift it and make it into his own mold and his own vision of what he wanted to build a football program into. For him to go and have another 10-win season under his belt, with that win over SC, Lanning tied Mike Bellotti and Chip Kelly for the most 10-win seasons in Oregon history with 4. This is his 4th year coaching at Oregon. What he has done has been absolutely
remarkable,
amazing.
Yeah, it's remarkable and super cool for the West Coast, right? Just having been really kind of one program out west that's a brand nationally over my lifetime. USC is the brand on the West Coast, and what Oregon's been able to accomplish with really creating this is a place that every kid in the country knows about, a place that everybody wants to go or thinks is the cool place to go. And now the substance behind it to be able to beat quality football teams is really cool.
Yeah. And it's to the point now where that recruiting forward is Oregon has the ability to be picky with who they get. And it's no longer casting that wide net and hoping and praying that somebody comes your way. What Oregon can do now is say, no, we want this guy, and this guy. And if you look at the recruiting rankings, you just take that USC matchup. USC currently has the number 1 recruiting class in the country. They have 35 commits. They have 1 5-star, 24 stars. That's a great recruiting class, right? That is number 1 just from the sheer volume. Oregon's recruiting class is 5th in the country heading into signing day, which is next week, I think.
Next week.
Oregon, if you go by average commit, they are number 1 in the class. They only have 19 commits. So 35 for SC, 19 for Oregon. 5 of Oregon's commits are 5 stars.
That's pretty remarkable.
11 of them are 4 stars.
Wow.
And so you look at that and it is, at this point, it's like, it's not, they are being choosy with who they take because that is the recruiting forward. That is where you can look at it and you could say, all right, now we start stacking talent. We don't have a bunch of attrition, guys leaving in the transfer portal. We don't have all of these spots that are going to come free like other places, but they also allow themselves, because of the success that they've had, to say any holes that we do have, we'll go into the transfer portal and we'll backfill those, because those guys that have come in, they have succeeded and then gone on to the NFL. That's attractive to anybody who's in the portal.
And that's using the portal the right way, right? Like these teams that are having to bring in 50, 60 people. It's possible to do. Cignetti did it at Indiana. It's possible to do. But the best way to use it is to get the best high school talent you can. As you just said, 20 to 25 guys instead of 35 or 40 guys that you're bringing in, and then get 8 to 10 really quality dudes that have already proven it, and build those young guys and give them a chance to succeed.
So here's the thing. When you bring in a recruiting class that is 35, 40 guys, right? Which is a stark contrast. It used to be like capped at 28, I think.
Yeah.
But it's no longer capped like that. But what you do when you bring in a big class is you have all of these guys, you have multiple guys in one position group, and they take a look around the room and say, well, wait a minute. If I'm going to be here for 3 or 4 years, this room is too crowded for me. All of these guys are my same age. So you have to stagger those guys out and have seniors, juniors, sophomores, and freshmen. And I think that's where Oregon is now getting picky with, all right, we'll develop you. You'll pop. You'll be good. And they can point to the markers, right? They can point to guys like Ife Obadegu, who is a starting corner at Oregon this year. He's a redshirt freshman. He didn't play last year. He's now a starting corner. But what they also did is they brought in a guy in Theron Johnson from Northwestern, who is an established veteran, and said, well, we're going to push you to compete, but we're going to have depth who's a senior. You're not going to have to wait your turn for too long.
Yeah.
And those things are important to point to guys and say, all right, you're going to have to wait your turn. You're going to have to win that job, but it's not against 5 guys in the same room that are all your age.
So SEC had their bakery weekend, right? Where they all were eating cupcakes all weekend long. So what do you think is going to happen with the CFP? Obviously, this weekend isn't the biggest movement. Next week will be, but what do you think you'll see with the CFP this week?
I think what we'll see with the college, and look, there's a lot of angles that you could take here. I think the biggest story with the College Football Playoff Committee is, can they justify and can they position the ACC? Because you saw that with the AP Top 25 poll.
There's 5 of them in the AP Top 25.
There are 5 ACC teams ranked. There are not the 5 of the top 25 teams in college football do not reside in the ACC. They don't. I mean, that's the point blank. It's not reality. But the College Football Playoff Committee, they do have to figure out a way to have the 5 highest ranked conference champions in the mix. And if the ACC isn't a part of it, then the Sun Belt, the American, the MAC, they all are playing a role in that. And the committee has to kind of artificially pump up the ACC, because although there aren't 5 teams in the ACC that are the top 25 teams in college football, they're still better than the Sun Belt or the AAC, right? And I think if you were to put a North Texas or a James Madison or a Tulane into the ACC, they would struggle as well.
Totally.
They would struggle as well. So you have to have this reality of the ACC champion will be better than the second best group of 5 champion, which I don't know who that would be. I think right now James Madison would probably be that 5th team in from the group of 6 conferences. But we know the ACC is better than whatever that leftover group of 6 conferences. So manufacturing the ACC is going to be the interesting one for me, because what that will do, if they have to push 4 or 5 teams into that top 25, all of a sudden that pushes out the resume for the last at-large bids. And that's where it's really hard to be this committee right now, because how do you tell people that, those fringe teams right now, you look at the fringe teams, it would be 9 through 15 right now: Notre Dame, Alabama, BYU, Vanderbilt, Miami, Utah, and Michigan. With those teams, how do you say, hey, their resume is good enough to be an at-large team if you're artificially inflating the ACC?
Yeah, I don't know. Can we just use AI? Can we get rid of people so if we're going to artificially do it, we might as well just get humans out of it and use AI to make these decisions. It does everything else better. Or almost everything else better. You got to get the human element out of this.
Well, you want to know what's funny is they have there's a Twitter account, BCS Know-How.
Okay.
And they pump out what the BCS rankings would have been. Right? Back when the computers used to make the BCS champion, 2 teams, that's it. That's our national championship game. This is what the playoff would have looked like. And this is for this week. Ohio State is number 1, Indiana 2, Texas A&M 3, Georgia 4, Oregon is 5th, Ole Miss 6th, Texas Tech 7, Oklahoma 8, Notre Dame 9, Alabama 10, BYU 11, Utah 12, Vandy 13, Miami 14, Michigan 15.
So it's basically the AP got that right, the top 12 right, but it's the trying to fit in everybody from all the conferences to get everybody their bid.
And right now, James, you would have North Texas, according to the BCS, would be 20th. Tulane 21st, James Madison 22nd.
In that poll, how many ACC teams are in the top 25 with the BCS rankings?
Miami at 14, Virginia at 19, Georgia Tech at 23, and Pittsburgh at 25.
Pitt is still a top 25 team in AP and the BCS rankings.
Yeah, if the BCS would have existed today.
They got beat 70-7
I know.
That just
wait, no, Syracuse got beat 70-7.
No, excuse me.
Yeah,
That's right. Syracuse 70-7.
Yeah.
My fault. Pitt got beat in a closer game. That's right. I got that wrong. My fault. Sorry to all the Pitt fans out there. I'm sure there's not too many of you listening right now.
Pitt beat Georgia Tech.
That's right.
They beat them.
Right.
They beat Georgia Tech 42-28, where Haynes King went down.
That's right.
Haynes King did not be Superman enough to bring the Ramblin' Wreck to a win.
That's right. That was a big win for Pitt. I got my ACC team.
But
confused.
you got to remember those teams are also being pumped up because there's 5 AP ranked ACC teams, and the BCS takes the AP poll
as a standard.
Yep.
All right. Well, this week obviously a lot of movement, and I think what we're going to see now with all of the coaches opening that have come open. We saw James Franklin be the first to get hired at Virginia Tech, and I think it's a great hire for Virginia Tech. I think it's great for James Franklin too, but we won't dive into that too much. What I want to talk about,
he had a recruiting weekend this weekend. Did you see that?
Oh yeah,
17 decommits from Penn State when they fired James Franklin.
Absolutely,
he's the first guy hired. And a majority of that recruiting class was on campus at Virginia Tech this past week for a visit. And James Franklin had the opportunity, because he wasn't coaching the game, to sit with those recruits for the entirety of the game.
Go on television.
And try to win them over.
He went on television. I heard his interview, went on TV and got to give his vision for the program to the national audience that was watching that game.
Penn State there's got to be an element of them going, I think we may have made the wrong choice here.
Yeah, and the whole idea that coaches get fired early, I'm not for that in general. I think it impacts the student athlete experience in a lot of ways, and I think a lot of it can happen at the end of the season. But with the way the calendar is with football, you almost have to do it, and Virginia Tech is showing you why that is such a good idea to do.
No doubt about it. Yeah. I mean, and look, Penn State is picking themselves up off the mat. They picked up another win. They've now had 2 conference wins back-to-back against Michigan State, Nebraska. They have Rutgers to end the year. Look, you could see a Penn State team that becomes bowl eligible if they can beat Rutgers at the end of the year.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting for me. It's always you fire a coach like that. Are you sure you're going to get somebody that's better? But because you damn well better be sure that you're especially at a program like that you're going to be able to replace that guy with somebody who is better than what you just got rid of.
That is 100% the fire this coach. My response is, okay, who's better?
Who's coming? Right?
Is the assistant coach who still has a lot to say with how that program operates? Is he going to be better for the short term? Probably not. Maybe. Do you want to spend that kind of money on maybe? No.
Yeah, so let's talk about just kind of philosophy. I was listening to Dirt and Sprague, a local radio show here. The guys do a great job, by the way. I love listening to them. But talking about the Oregon State hire, and we don't need to dive into that one particularly, but I think it's a great exercise in talking about the philosophy and how you go about hiring a coach. And I'm going to leave the names out, but they have some FCS coaches that they're looking at.
Mm-hmm.
There suddenly is other FBS coaches who potentially could be available that would have ties to that job. And I think that's the same for a lot of programs that are in Oregon State situation, right? That's the pool that you're looking at. And the question is, do I hire somebody, if I don't have all the resources, do I hire somebody who is going to come in and be happy with what I have, might be a really good coach, and has the ability to make more out of less? Or do I hire somebody that knows what it's like at that level, good football coach, and is going to push us and complain and be a thorn in our side to make sure that we're reaching that level? What is your thought on that process, on that? And I don't know if we'll agree, but if we disagree, I'm going to vehemently disagree with you. So I want to hear your take.
I think the most important thing that a program where Oregon State is at right now needs to do is when you have to have awareness of who you are and what you are, and going into that and what you want to be, right? If you want to be a program that's okay, good, all right, that's fine. And then that's when you can go with the more safe hire and say, look, we want somebody who can prove that they can find those diamonds in the rough and they're going to just kind of go status quo. I think if you're Oregon State, where I would want to be at is I want to find a coach that's a winner, just a bona fide winner. And that means that guy's probably going to leave. And you have to be okay with that. You have to be okay with your process of, no, we will find the next guy. Everybody wants to have the coach that's going to be there for 15, 20 years. Reality of that is college football, good luck finding that.
Yeah, good luck.
Good luck finding that, because when you get to a certain point, it's really hard to find a coach that your fan base all of a sudden starts to get spoiled. Look at Florida, look at LSU, look at these programs and say, no, we have a standard to keep where 8, 9, even 10 wins, not enough sometimes because they want to be nationally relevant. So these coaches, you get these guys who want to win, who believe they can win and are pissed off for greatness, right? Sometimes the school turns on them. So they're jaded as well, right? Yeah. Look no further than guys like Lane Kiffin at Ole Miss. So if I'm Oregon State, I want to find the person who is a bona fide winner. Kurt Cignetti is a great example of this. The guy works his way up. He's an assistant at Alabama, takes a pay cut, goes to a D2 school because he's like, no, I can be a head coach and I can win. He wins there, goes to James Madison, or goes to Elon, wins at Elon. Goes to James Madison, wins at James Madison, gets the Indiana job. And people are like, who's this 60-year-old dude who's taking over this program? Or Google 62. Me. And he says, I win. Google me. And he's right. That's right. You know? And guess what? He was happy with that. And he was like, you know what? James Madison knew he was going to leave. Yeah. Elon knew he was going to leave. All of these schools knew Cignetti would take the first flight out of there. But you know what it did for both of those programs? It elevated them to make it more attractive for the next person. Yeah. So then your program takes a step up. Then your program takes another step up after, you know, that guy gets a job somewhere. And then all of a sudden you have to work your way up to relevancy. That's what Boise State did. Boise State was a junior college. Then they were a D2 school. Then they were an FCS school. And then, you know, 35 years ago, was it? They move up to the FBS level. Nobody cared about the Boise State job, but from Pokey Allen to Dan Hawkins to Chris Peterson, they built something that is sustainable there, and it became a brand name. Oregon State doesn't want to hear this, but that's the reality. That's what they need to do, is they need to find the guy. You're a stepping stone. You're a stepping stone now. But you know what? You're going to finally get to your place of relevance.
I agree with you. And I'm going to use your term all the time. And I used to say this, it's hard to win.
Yes.
It's hard to win one. I'm a college basketball coach. It's hard to win one college basketball game, much less win enough to get to a playoff, get to a postseason, get where you want to go. Mm-hmm. And as an athletic director, first, you got to find the person that you believe is going to help you win. But then when you get that person knows if you've sat in one of those chairs, stood on one of those sidelines, roamed one of those sidelines as a coach, you understand how hard it is to win. And if it's hard where I am and I figure out how to do it, that natural competitiveness of that person's going to want to take them to a place where it's not quite as hard to win. I've proven I can do it here. Yep. And I can go somewhere where it's not quite as hard. And if I'm able to do it here, I'm going to do it at a better level there. And that's what you should be looking for as an AD, is that person that embraces the athletics teaches us how to do hard things. Winning is freaking hard. And that's the guy that you want to bring in to establish your program. And if they leave, then you better be looking before you even, year 1, year 2, and you see that trajectory, you better be finding that guy behind that person that also knows that it's hard to win and is figuring out how to do it and bringing that guy in next.
And to me, like there's a split for a lot of these vacant jobs of, do you want to get the young guy who's trying to prove himself, or do you want to get the established guy? I don't care. Win. Because right now, if you roll the dice on a young guy and it fails, you then take another step back.
That's right.
And I don't care what the guy's age is. Indiana didn't care Kurt Cignetti was 62 years old when they hired him. They said, what we are going to do is we are going to get the guy who we think can win here. And they pushed all their chips in the center of the table. And the 64-year-old Kurt Cignetti just signed a contract extension. How long is he going to be there? I don't know. Ride this high, though, because you know what? The worst thing that you can do is take another step back and then have to crawl even out of a deeper hole to get to relevancy again. Find somebody who can win. I don't care how old he is. Find somebody who understands the university, is in alignment with the expectations and the resources that they have, and just find somebody who will win, whether that's 2 years, 3 years, it doesn't matter. Find somebody to leave the program in a better place than it is right now.
Speaking of leaving the program in a better place, I think a couple weeks ago we talked about Lane Kiffin.
Yeah.
Maybe it was last week. Do you still think he's staying?
No. What a mess this is. Like,
I love it.
Last week we got done recording. I'm like, dude, Lane he's a mature person now. He understands it. Literally 12 hours later, there's reports of planes flying into Oxford, taking his family to Baton Rouge, taking his family to Gainesville to tour the areas. And I'm like, oh goodness, he hasn't. He's never going to change. And I don't get it, because I do believe this. At the end of this week, we have been told that there will be a resolution to Lane Kiffin where he's going to be at after the Egg Bowl against Mississippi State. The playoff committee, and Ole Miss will not be in the SEC championship game. The playoff committee needs to honestly take a look at that and say, if Lane Kiffin is going to Florida or LSU, that affects Ole Miss's standing in the college football playoff. They remember a 4-team playoff. They held Florida State out because they lost their quarterback. I'm sorry, but the backup quarterback does not mean as much as the head coach and the play caller offensively to a team.
Yeah.
And so Ole Miss, if Lane Kiffin does say I'm out, that should affect the playoff seeding for Ole Miss.
I'm gonna push back on something here, and maybe maturity. Maybe he hasn't matured as much as we were giving him credit for. But I'll tell you what he does know. He knows what 16 and 17 and 18-year-old kids like.
Yeah.
And he knows how to connect with them. And who would have ever thought 4, 5, 10, 15 years ago that the epicenter of college football would be around the Egg Bowl?
Right.
And every kid in America that's a 4-star, 5-star athlete right now is paying attention to what Lane Kiffin is doing. And it's going to either help him if he stays, because everybody's going to want to come play for him, and it's going to help him if he goes, because everybody's going to want to come play for him.
I think Lane Kiffin, and this is just me just spitballing here, knowing the showman that Lane Kiffin is, there's a part of me that is saying in his mind, he's going, we are going to absolutely mop the floor with Mississippi State in the Egg Bowl on their turf. We're going to go to Starkville. There's going to be an ABC camera in my face on Black Friday after that game, and I'm just going to look into that camera and say, why would I want to be anywhere else?
Yeah, I hope that happens.
We just kicked our rivals' ass. Now we're going to go to the college football playoff, and if you want to be on board, hop on board with me. There is a showman element of Lane Kiffin.
100%.
And he also knows that if he does that, it also knocks down LSU and Florida a peg.
Yeah.
Because he says, no, Ole Miss is better than those places. I can do anything that those programs can do right here in Oxford. But it's also Lane Kiffin, and we have no idea.
I'll give you a quick Lane Kiffin story. So when I was coaching at Utah, all the coaches meetings, and it's in the springtime, we're at the Biltmore down in Phoenix, Arizona, right? And all the coaches have their meetings. You meet with the media, you do all your thing. And then there's this really nice dinner that you're required to wear slacks and a collared shirt for. Lane Kiffin's the only guy there, the only coach there, men and women, men's, women's basketball and football, showed up in a pair of jeans and a t-shirt. But everybody knew it was Lane Kiffin, right? So that part about him has not changed. And I think it's a little bit irreverent, but kids love that shit, right? Mm-hmm. Like, he has figured out a way to connect with kids. And we said it a few minutes ago, like winning is what matters at that level. And the way you win is to get more good players than everybody else. And Dan Lanning's figured out how to do it his way at Oregon. And I think Lane is showing it's a different way to do it at Ole Miss. But it's fun to watch, man. It keeps you glued to the TV.
It is. And he is, if anything else, he's a showman.
Yeah, he is.
Love it.
All right. Well, speaking of showman, we were talking about this last week. Patrick Mahomes, he's pretty good.
Yeah.
And you know, I was watching that game yesterday, and they were talking about some statistically that he's not quite what he's been in the last few years, but what he still is pretty good in the clutch. And I'm with you 100%. I was last week. I'm even more so after watching that. Their schedule sets them up. If I was to pick a team to go to the AFC championship game right now and to represent in the Super Bowl, it would be really hard for me to not say I would pick Kansas City right now.
Yeah, I mean, their final 6 games of the year are Dallas, Houston, Chargers, Titans, Broncos, Raiders. They can beat all 6 of those teams, and they can end the season on a 7-game win streak. And we're looking at a team that is 11-5 or 12 and was it would be 12-5 on the year.
Yeah,
that's a really damn good team, and that probably wins you your division.
And playing their best football at the time where they really know it matters, right? Like football really starts after Thanksgiving in the NFL, right? Like that's winning time.
And their 3 toughest challenges, they all get at home.
Yeah.
And that's really important, especially those 2 divisional games that they dropped early in the year, Denver and in LA. They can win those back, and they get them at home, and that is a insane home field advantage, especially when you're talking about games in December in Arrowhead. It's going to be cold. The crowd will still be there. They'll be on your side. Look, they're not going anywhere. They just took a little bit longer to warm up than other teams. And that's the thing with the 17-game NFL schedule, is that it's now a marathon. It's not a sprint anymore to the playoffs. You can work out your kinks, and you can go through the hard times and come out on the other side. That's going to be a dangerous team come playoff time.
You know, this time of year is so much fun to watch. The really good teams start to separate, right? And I was watching that game last night, the Rams and the Bucks. And what just jumps off the screen to me when it doesn't matter what's football or basketball, when it gets to winning time, you know, like the critical part of the season, speed shows up, right? And the Rams look so freaking fast. And I want to give, I like old guys because I'm an old guy. What Matthew Stafford is doing at 37 years old, when they chronicled this last night on the during the game, like they didn't think he was going to play this year.
Mm-mm.
There was a chance that he was not going to play football this year. And he made a throw last night that looked like remember Goose, what was the old submarine pitcher in Major League Baseball? Was it Goose Gossage that went submarine? Anyway, he threw a submarine, looked like an underhanded throw about 20 yards down the field where he couldn't see it. What he's doing is pretty remarkable.
And it's incredible the way they've built that roster out. For so many years, they went the F them picks route, where it was just like they had a window, they were going to win. Now you're seeing that Les Snead and Sean McVay, they are in lockstep with talent evaluation and bringing guys in that fit what they want to do in that mold. They've knocked it out of the park with their draft picks. And you're seeing the blend of the veterans like Matthew Stafford and Devontae Adams, who's had a resurgence after everybody thought he was washed up.
He's turning into Chris Carter. All he does is catch touchdowns, man.
Just catch touchdowns, because you have to pay attention to guys like Puka Nacua, who they draft and they knock it out of the park. Like everybody's like, oh, they got this Cooper Kupp guy. Well, Puka Nacua is an elevated Cooper Kupp right now.
He's good at football.
And that they are drafting well. They know exactly what free agents they need, where to roll the dice on. They're not going in and just saying, Odell Beckham, maybe he'll work. Nope, they figured it out, and guys like Devontae Adams are having incredible seasons as well.
We talked a bit about the Cowboys.
And their
last
defense
week.
is good.
Oh, they're just fast, man.
Everywhere.
Like, I mean, and powerful, obviously. I mean, they're all big, but that speed just jumped off the screen. And Mayfield and Bridgewater both just spent their the entire game running for their lives. I hope Baker's okay. I've been rooting for that guy I love seeing the second chance guys and get an opportunity. It sucked to see him get hurt last night. But to the next group here we were chatting about last week is the Cowboys. And both of us said the Cowboys aren't good at football. And then they play everybody, the Eagles are as, kind of as the world turns here with what the drama they've got going on. And I'm telling you, that kind of stuff translates to the field, to the court. If you got drama in the locker room, you got drama off the field, at some point in time, it catches you. And because you spend too much time thinking about that, not enough time preparing. And it looked last night like the Cowboys were dead. And then holy cow, they weren't.
Yeah. I mean, if you're a Philly fan, that one stings because it's like all you needed was a score. You're up 21-0 and you end up losing that football game. That one stings. But as you talk about the drama surrounding Philly, the trauma surrounding Dallas also, that can be a rallying point. And
sad but true.
Marshawn Nealon, in his unfortunate passing, like that can be a galvanizing moment for a team where you can see that they are buying into Brian Schottenheimer, his messaging. One thing that has been clear is that through all of this, Schottenheimer cares about his guys, and he put that first. And to see them pick themselves off the mat on a tragedy like that when it happens, there's no playbook for that. There's nothing. You just got to show that you care about your guys, and you're going to get that in return. And they've kind of rallied together, and the 2 wins that they've had have been really impressive as kind of that jumping off point to look, maybe there is something there in Dallas that they can finish this season, because their defense, it took a really long time to get together, and let's not make a mistake about it. They give up 21 that looked pretty easy. But they figured it out over the course of a game, and they end up pitching a shutout the rest of the way. And now you're looking at a Lions team that's kind of on their heels up next on Thanksgiving. You got the Chiefs next.
Yeah.
And then you have the Lions, the Vikings, the Chargers, Commanders, and Giants. They don't have an easy schedule by any stretch of the imagination. But when you start catching fire like they are, keep your eye on them. I'm going with like my one hand covering my eyes here.
Yeah, maybe that they're not good at football was a strong statement, but they haven't proven yet that they're a juggernaut. They still are 500.
That's right.
Yeah. So, and I grew up hating the Cowboys because my best friend loved them, and all he did was talk about them. And the Cowboys and the Lakers, and I don't like either one of those teams, but they are good for the national conversation. For whatever reason, they seem to manage to continue to get to be talked about, whether they're good or they're bad. They're just one of those teams.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree.
All right. Anything else in the NFL that stood out to you this weekend?
I mean, the Colts losing to the Chiefs in the fashion that they did in overtime, not a big indicator of what they are. I think they went into a tough place against a team with their back against the wall
that knows how to win.
That was a tough game for them. But what that did is it kind of flipped the AFC on its head now, with the Patriots now holding the best record in the AFC at 10-2. What Mike Vrabel has done with that crew has been nothing short of amazing, because they were not good last year. Drake May has turned a corner with Josh McDaniels. They lose their left tackle, Will Campbell, in that game, and they still find a way to hold on. It's not pretty with New England, but that being the best team in the AFC right now, and then Denver being number 2 record-wise, you look at it and you go, man, this AFC is wide open.
Yeah.
And it has been, I don't know if it has been this wide open in quite some time, because Kansas City's still there lurking. Baltimore's still there lurking. All of these teams have their flaws. They have massive flaws. The
Baltimore's
Chargers
not even lurking anymore.
No,
they're in first place in their division.
They are winning their division, have won 5 games in a row. Don't look good doing it at times, but just find ways to win. The AFC is going to be an interesting one as it comes down the stretch, because I just don't know who the best team is in the AFC. Right now in the NFC, the Rams are the best team in the NFC. They might be the best team in the NFL, and it might not be close.
Yeah.
to the Rams and kind of everybody else with the way that they are playing at such a high level.
Yeah, that whole winning ugly thing. Just remember, there's no pictures in the win-loss column, just W's and L's. Like you don't get extra points for winning pretty or losing pretty. It's just whether or not you had one more point than the other guy at the end of the game. And figuring out how to win is a skill, right? Like we talk about all the time. It's hard to win, like we've talked about it today. And figuring out how to do that is one of those things that it becomes your identity, right? We're a winning team. Then you figure out how to win big. Then you figure out how to win ugly. You figure out how to win close ones. Like winning is a skill.
Yeah. But New England at 10-2, they are 6-2 in 1-score games.
Yeah.
Like those balance themselves out over the course of, a 17-game season. You're not going to win every single one of those 1-score games. Sometimes the pendulum swings the other way. And they've been trying to find ways to win ugly against the Jets and the Bengals over the last couple of weeks. But we'll figure out kind of who they are because, they've got Buffalo and Baltimore coming up after they have the Giants on December 1st. They're gonna be tested moving forward.
Yeah. All right, man. Last topic of the day today, just quickly here. College basketball season is now going. I think now college basketball probably really starts in January for everybody that's actually a fan. But I've watched some hoops this last week, and man, the men's basketball product has gotten significantly better. And I think the NIL has been great for the game. And I think ultimately it's going to help the NBA as well. I think, over the years, you have all these guys one and done and couldn't make money if they stayed in college. And now those borderline kids who are going to be second round draft picks can make as much money or close to as much money staying in college.
Mm-hmm.
And you've got so many more good players who've been in the system maybe a little bit longer, and the game is better. And those guys are going to become stars. This March is going to create some stars in college basketball that are going to translate to the NBA. And I think that cycle long term is going to be good for both college basketball and for the NBA.
Guys are going to be ready when they go to the NBA.
Yeah.
And that was for so long, whether it was guys going straight from high school to the NBA or the one and done rule. There were so many guys that were entering just to make sure that they could get their first paycheck. Well, you can get your first paycheck now in college, and you can stick around a little bit longer, and you can be ready, truly ready for that next step forward. That's what we used to see. There was a value in growing your game and being successful long term, because when we think of the heyday of college basketball, it coincided with NBA players. In order to be financially stable, you had to have an 8 to 10 year career.
Yeah.
But then contracts went through the roof, you sat there and you said, I only need to get one contract.
That's right.
I need to, hell, they could cut me after year one and I still make a bunch of money because all my money's guaranteed on this 4-year deal. So we saw this rush of guys at the NBA that just weren't ready, but needed to do it for themselves, their families, and for their financial security. You don't have that now. NIL, it has its flaws. It also has its great benefits. And I think the game of college basketball, the game of college football, they're benefiting on the field of play by guys sticking around and seeing it through.
Yeah, and I think, the renaissance that women's basketball had everything to do with men's basketball not creating storylines for fans and people being able to connect to the players, right? You can connect to the brand and the school still, but people want to connect to players. They want to follow kids all the way through. And Caitlin Clark's an easy one, right? Like her story, 4 years at Iowa and what she did, and now in the WNBA, what's happening with people watching the WNBA. You see her out and how much it impacts the whole league in being watched. But I don't know. I've never done this, but I'll bet you there's, 30 guys in the NBA that average 15 points a game that I don't know.
Yeah.
That are guys that I don't know. And if those guys stay in college for longer and we can watch them in March Madness and build a story and a storyline and we're going to know those guys, and we're going to have more interest in watching the NBA, which right now I personally, till the playoffs, have no interest in watching.
I agree with that. I think that if you look down, I'm just looking at it right now for the sake of this conversation. You said that there's guys that you don't know that are averaging 15 points a game or more. There are currently 78 guys in the NBA that are averaging 15 or more points per game. 78.
Can you send me that list? Because when this is over, I want to look at that list and I want to see how many of those guys I know.
I mean, there's a lot of guys that I think you will know.
Yeah, of course.
I think guys like Rui Hachimura and PJ White, but to
your point, Rui Hachimura,
Derek White
stayed in college for
went to Gonzaga.
Yeah, he was there the whole time.
Yeah, I mean, but there's guys like Ajay Mitchell of Oklahoma City. Are you familiar with him? No. Yeah, he's averaging 16.1 points per game.
First time I've heard his name.
For the Thunder. Yeah, defending NBA champions.
Good team.
Yeah.
17-1. Yeah, they're good, right? And so I'm all for this NIL. I'm all for what's happening. And I think the ancillary benefit is going to be that it impacts both games, both college athletics and the professional leagues in a very positive way.
I agree wholeheartely.
All right, man. Last thing of the day here. Question of the day. What do you got for me?
I've been sitting on this one. I wanted to ask you last week.
Yeah.
It's Thanksgiving, though, this week.
Yeah.
How do you build your plate?
Well, so we're not turkey.
Oh.
Yeah. My family is not turkey. I either do prime rib or beef tenderloin.
Ooh, I like it.
This year's beef tenderloin. I've got my beef tenderloin. There's a butcher here locally. It's a long drive from my house, but it is worth it. It's called The Meeting Place.
Oh, hey, that's right near my house.
Oh my God, it's the greatest place ever. If you like to look at raw meat, it's like heaven. But the beef tenderloin, and then we do crab mac and cheese.
Okay,
that's my daughter. And then we will do some mashed potatoes because my son loves mashed potatoes. And then my wife loves the green bean casserole, so we do that as well. And then we'll make some homemade rolls. And then our big deal is our desserts are the exact same every year. We do peppermint pie with Oreos, peppermint ice cream, and hot fudge.
Oh my gosh.
And then my daughter, my grandma started this tradition many years ago when I was a little kid, chocolate peanut butter pie. And Dolly Parton had a recipe out like 40 some years ago, and we used the same recipe for chocolate peanut butter pie. So that's the Leverett's.
You guys are eating good.
That's the Leverett's holiday tradition. We do, and then if it's not broken, don't fix it. We do the same damn thing for Christmas.
Oh, perfect. See, that's the best part of this year is that you just eat hearty. It's cold. We're just eating really good.
That's right. No,
worry about it, and that's what New Year's resolutions are for.
Well, Thanksgiving. I used to be a bah humbug when I was younger, but the older I get, the more I love these times. And my daughter's coming home from college. I'm looking forward to seeing her. And then we've got obviously a state championship football game.
There we
go. My son is not getting to dress because the freshmen don't get to dress, but he got called up and gets to be over there with his jersey on and feels like
practice on Thanksgiving, man.
That's right, man. It's a really cool time.
I love that.
All right, man. Happy holidays.
You as well. Have a good one.
All right.